Here's what's coming up on episode 49 of the Big Seance podcast. Carbon Lilies. You both took what I feel is a very cool and ambitious journey last month in October and did this whole experiment where you watched 31 movies and you listened to 31 songs for 31 days.
I honestly did not think that there was any way we could do 31 movies, but then it became a public endeavor because Lana decided to publicize it on social media, and that was that, and we suddenly had people following us, and as soon as I realized that people were actually paying attention, I thought, oh my god, there's no getting out of this now.
Scariest movie ever.
Totally gets under my skin.
That is one that you should definitely watch.
Oh my god, Patrick. It sticks with me for days, and even just talking about it now, it actually starts getting under me again. And after we watched it, I thought, I don't know if I can sleep.
To have a horror movie, the stars have to make a bad decision or two. These were the worst decisions, though. If you're driving by and you see a guy dumping a body down a hole, I would go and call the cops. But no, they have to stop and go back and see what's down the hole.
Not just look down the hole, but actually go down the hole. I started approaching it as this is time that I get to spend with my partner. And so it really became more quality time, and it became an experience instead of a chore.
Welcome to the Big Seance podcast. I'm Patrick Keller of BigSeance.com, and this is a place for an open discussion on all things paranormal, but specifically topics like ghosts and hauntings, paranormal research, spirit communication, psychics and mediums, and life after death. So basically, anything that pops up in my paranormal world. The candles are already lit, so you might as well come on in and join the seance. Hi, come on in. Tea is ready right over there on the parlor table. There's some sugar cubes in the silver dish, though I prefer Splenda, so there's some of that over there too. Make yourself at home because I know you're going to love today's episode. But before we get to our guests, speaking of sugar cubes and parlors, I want to officially invite every one of you to the brand new Facebook group for the Big Seance podcast. We call it the Big Seance Parlor. Makes sense, right? It's a paranerdal community for you, the listeners and supporters of the podcast. Many of you have previously liked the Big Seance page, which is staying put and not going anywhere. But the addition of the parlor is going to allow for more engagement and interaction. There has been some good interaction and discussion so far, so I encourage you to join. Just make sure you aren't a scammer or a robot or a student of mine, and you'll have to be approved, but it's not a status thing, I promise. You should have no problems getting in. Joining me in the Big Seance Parlor so far is Joe, Katie, Rodney, Debbie, Linda, that's my mom, Denise, Jeffrey, Josh, Vincent, Dennis, Lacey, Dawn, Nikki, Heather, Laurie, Mary, Cindy, Philip, Tony, Securlia, A.G. Ruff, Edna, Andrea, Heather Lynn, Patty, Jennifer, Sydney, Diane Goff, who is a long-time supporter and friend of the Big Seance, my new friend Jeremy, who I want to tell you a little about later, and also tonight's guests, Lana and John. And speaking of guests, if you ever wanted to get connected with a former guest of the podcast, many of them have already joined the parlor, including Victoria Cosner, Lorelei Shannon, Claire Broad, Janice Carlson, Karen A. Dahlman, Diane and Denise from the History Goes Bump podcast, Ginger Collins Justice, Marilyn Painter, Thomas Spychowski, and Marion Hover. So jump on in and say hi. Just search for the Big Seance Parlor in Facebook, or find the link in the show notes for this episode at bigseance.com. After the interview, I've got some listener feedback and some more iTunes reviews to be thankful for. But right now, I want to introduce you to tonight's guests. They are Lana Carbon and John Lilies of the blog Carbon Lilies. I want to go ahead and just read a portion of their introductory post from the blog. It reads, "Together we will bring you our thoughts and reflections on the various places we visit, things we see and hear, and occurrences we cannot explain. Varied though they may be, we each have many interests, and we hope to share them with you, such that you may decide to visit, read, check out, listen to, explore, dream about, and form your own ideas. Our adventures take us to locations near and not so near, from small museums to major art galleries, walks through forests and historic towns, listening to various podcasts that make us truly think and question our world, and given our attraction to the paranormal, we also include cemeteries in our explorations." Since we're getting ready to talk about some spooky movies, I decided to go ahead and bring out some of the spooky music that will be familiar to some of you, especially if you've listened to some of my Halloween episodes. And I realize some time has passed since Halloween, but it is a spooky project that Lana and John did, and they did do it around Halloween, kind of in honor of Halloween. And so I thought, why not try to just make this spooky and pull that music out again? So the spooky music you're hearing is, once again, from the very talented Sam Haynes. He's always very kind to give me permission to use it. And along with several albums that he has out that I listen to every year, he has a new album for this year called The Incredible Dark Carnival. You should check it out on iTunes or visit the Sam Haynes site at www.hauntmusic.co.uk. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, two lovely people just walked into our virtual seance parlor today, and they are two folks who have been incredibly supportive of me and the Big Seance for a long time now. You even heard one of their voices in some listener feedback, and they are Lana and John of Carbon Lilies, which is a blog that you should check out if you haven't already, and we'll talk more about that. Lana, John, welcome to the Big Seance podcast today.
Hey, Patrick.
Hello, Patrick.
So I'm gonna try something here. John, say hi.
Hi.
Lana, say hi.
Hello.
So why don't one of you explain why some people might get confused when they hear Lana and John's voices? Do you want to give us an explanation for that? Let's start off with that.
Sure thing. So this is John Lilies, and Lana Carbon is my partner. And we decided a couple years ago that we'd try giving a blog a little bit of a shot, but we wanted to do so anonymously. And so we decided that we would come up with pseudonyms for ourselves. And so we took our names and we jumbled up all the letters and we came up with a couple of pseudonyms. And it turned out that Lana ended up being the girl name for the guy, and John became the guy name for the girl, and we decided to go with it, mostly because I just don't think that we necessarily need to have a guy name for the guy and a girl name for the girl, so we stuck with it, and we've probably confused everybody who follows us, but we have fun with it. So it's kind of been our thing, and it's kind of fun actually to find to see the reactions on people's faces if we do meet them in person. Also, when we are talking to them online, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're the girl."
Yeah, I give Lana and John a hard time because for a long time earlier on in our conversations back and forth, they had me incredibly confused with their pseudonyms, but now it's just funny. So I think we'll probably talk a bit about your blog, Carbon Lilies, in general today. But the main reason I wanted to have you guys on the show is that you both took what I feel is a very cool and ambitious journey last month in October and did this whole experiment where you watched 31 movies and you listened to 31 songs for 31 days in honor of Halloween. And I followed you guys on this journey, and it was such a cool idea. Now, I want to dig into it, but can you guys tell us how this whole thing came about?
Well, we were deciding what we were going to do for Halloween because we wanted to do something special. So Roy Thompson Hall in Toronto, where we live close to, was having a presentation of Psycho, and it was going to be accompanied by the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. So we had these huge plans, we were going to watch it, and that kind of sparked the idea of, well, we could watch movies all month in honor of Halloween. Well, why don't we watch 31 movies? That's one for every day. So that's what we decided we were going to do. And it started off strong, and there was a few days we'd miss, but we'd make up for it, and we managed it somehow, except for the fact that we never got to go and see Psycho at Roy Thompson Hall because plans just fell through.
Yeah, it's something you really had to commit to. That's what I like. And you went with it, and you said at the end you were a little behind, and you decided to dig right in and finish on time, which is cool.
Yeah, with 2 days left, we had 6 movies to go, so it was a struggle, but we got it.
I think, honestly, when Lana said 31 movies for 31 days, my jaw hit the floor. And I just turned and said, "Are you kidding? There's no way that we can do 31 movies." I have a hard enough time getting through one movie. If I can watch a movie in a week, I think it's a good week. And Lana is a huge movie buff and probably gets really hurt when I say it's just a movie, I don't need to watch it.
I think the word that I normally use there is blasphemy.
But I honestly did not think that there was any way we could do 31 movies. But then it became a public endeavor because Lana decided to publicize it on social media, and that was that. And we suddenly had people following us, and as soon as I realized that people were actually paying attention, I thought, oh my God, there's no getting out of this now.
That's funny. You took the next statement out of my mouth. I was just going to tell you how cool it was to follow, the journey on social media and ask you if there was any pressure involved with that.
Oh my God, it was so much pressure. It was insane. And to the point where then, we had some people actually making suggestions or asking, is this on your list and whatnot. And it just, I think the horror for me of Halloween really lied in just getting through this whole endeavor.
So how did you have the list set from the very beginning, and then did you edit that list as you got suggestions?
We probably wrote down 40 to 45 movies that we thought would work. A lot of them were sequels, and we did kind of the whole sequel things because we didn't know what we were going to use. But other than Poltergeist, we didn't do any sequels. That was the only one we did a sequel of. Yeah, we pared it down. And then we also hit the little snag of a time where we couldn't be together, and that was part of our agreement. We were going to watch all of these movies together.
Yeah.
And so there was that little pause, and that's what started the bonus movie section too. So we had to add a few while we were alone.
Right.
Because I am a movie buff.
Yeah, when he says we, he actually means him. We did have about close to a week where we were apart, and so there was no joint movie watching, and so him needing to still watch movies because he is such a movie buff, decided that he was just going to start all of these bonus movies. And then I had a couple days where I decided, okay, well, I'll do a couple bonus ones as well. And I actually didn't even realize at that point that the bonus movies were even going to be publicized. And then they ended up making it on, and I thought, wow, this is kind of cool. And oh my God, there are so many movies here.
I didn't want people on social media to think that we'd forgotten or that we'd given up, so I had to continue.
Well, and that was the thing, because we were apart from each other for a few days there, that we didn't want there to be this lull, you know, where we had started off with such a bang and then nothing was happening. So I think the bonus movie idea actually ended up being a really great one. And it is terrifying for me when I look at the number of movies that between the two of us we watched in 1 month.
Well, what's funny is, you know how, especially on Facebook, there's a lot of posts that you miss that you don't necessarily see. And I think most of the posts from you guys that I was seeing in the month of October were those bonus movie posts. And so I kept saying bonus movie, bonus movie. I'm like, oh my gosh, where are the regular ones? Like, I'm missing all the other ones. There's all these bonuses.
Yeah, and it was crazy. It was really hard to come up with the 31 that we were actually going to make that official list, because there are so many really cool movies out there and so many that we just wanted to check out that we had never seen. So coming up with that list was really tough, and we did edit it to answer your question. Was, you know, we did have the ideas that we wanted, but as we went along, we thought, you know, maybe we'll watch this one instead. We really want to fit this one in, so we're going to have to cut this one.
So people might be thinking, great, Halloween is over, and so now I have to remember to give this a try next year. And, you know, why are you covering this now? Well, one of the things that is always running through my head with the big seance is that once many of us approach the winter months, or the very, you know, non-Halloween-like holidays of Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, Valentine's Day, and so many of them are happy and, you know, bright and cheery. And with all of the cold and the snow, I'm always trying to come up with content that will help people keep a little paranormal spirit going on in their lives all winter long. And even though your 31 movies project works perfectly for Halloween, I kind of think that this kind of thing could be a perfect idea for those dreary cabin fever winter months as well. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think we're both big horror buffs, although I've had to take a little bit of a break since the 31. But yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's not just a Halloween thing. It's an all-year endeavor. And it really is just because we love the paranormal so much, and that idea of ghosts and vampires and werewolves and all of that stuff. I don't think that it has to be limited to the month of October.
Plus, if you're careful, you can do it for the other holidays as well, because there's certainly ghost tales from the rest of the year. Like Christmas time was known for ghost stories, as you've covered on your podcast before. And so we were actually thinking of dedicating 12 days of Christmas to 12 movies of Christmas, as give it a little break of the 30. So
yeah, so we are actually planning to do 12 movies for the 12 days of Christmas, so look for that one coming up.
Very cool. Yeah, us true paranerds, we need content all year long, not just October. So I think that's very cool.
Well, and if you think about it, even with Christmas, right, Scrooge himself had a nice little ghostly experience, so...
Very true, very true. Did you guys learn surprising things about each other during this project? Did it go that far?
There's a little bit of difference in our movie taste. I like the old Gothic, the Victorian era stuff, and thank you very much for suggesting The Uninvited.
Oh my God,
is
yes.
One of our favorite movies from the list that we actually did now.
So you were new to that movie before, right?
We had never heard of it.
I love it.
Yeah, so it was fantastic that you found that for us. And then I enjoy some slasher movies, not a lot, but a few more than John anyway. So there was a few on my list that I thought, yeah, that was pretty good. Not so much on her part.
Yeah.
I get confused myself sometimes.
Yeah, we confuse ourselves with our names. Wishmaster, which was, I think, number 14 on our list. I watched mostly through my fingers. I had my hands over my eyes for much of it and wanted to throw up by the end of it. So that one was definitely not a favorite of mine.
It seems to me that with some adjustments, though, to the list, that this could be a really cool thing for families with kids to try, don't you think? I can totally see that being something families could do to keep different holidays exciting.
Oh, for sure. And there are so many cool ones. I mean, Frankenweenie is one of my absolute favorites, and it's such a heartwarming one. I mean, it's sad, but it's a really touching movie in my eyes, and I would absolutely love to sit down with kids because I think it's a cool story for them. And then, Beetlejuice is I think it's a family movie. There are a lot of really cool movies out there, and of course Charlie Brown, right?
Oh yeah,
can't go wrong there. So yeah, I think it would be a really cool endeavor for families to do.
Is there one that both of you right now, hands up, could easily say you'd never care to watch again?
Both of us.
You can give yours.
Well, yeah, mine would absolutely be Wishmaster.
Okay.
I could do without seeing the third Poltergeist again.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've seen either of those, so I'd have to watch it, but then maybe now I won't.
Well, I'm a big fan of the Poltergeist series. The first one obviously is always the best.
Right.
Second one I do enjoy as well. The third one for me is just, I kind of watch it because I feel like I have to if I've watched the first two. But I don't know that I'll watch it again for a while.
And if you don't like gore at all, yeah, you could stay away from Wishmaster. It's quite bad for blood and gore.
Well, and I think I really kind of agree with John's thoughts. And I thought this as I was reading your blog, kind of the follow-up, the blood and the guts. It didn't always bother me so much, but it turns me off the older I get, I think. Even just in watching a regular series on TV, I'm always like, why was that necessary? Why did you just need to kill 4 people? Why did I need to hear the sound of blood squirting across the room? Yes. And I think sometimes I just end up annoying everyone in the room that I'm with. I wasn't always that kind of person. When I watch, for example, Nightmare on Elm Street, those type of things, they're very nostalgic. I kind of got into that when I was growing up. And now you watch those and they're just funny. Yeah. But not so much now.
Yeah, the blood and the guts. I'm really am finding that the older I get, the less I can handle it. And I mean, even to the point where we're big fans of The Walking Dead. Mm-hmm. And it's about the only show that I think I actually follow, and yet I think the majority of each episode I'm closing my eyes or I'm turning my head because I just can't handle it, yet I still watch it. So it's self-induced torture, but I don't know. I mean, I think there are also so many good, I guess they're thrillers more than horror movies, really, that I tend to be drawn to now more than anything else.
Yeah, do you guys watch American Horror Story?
No, we don't.
Yeah, I have totally loved most of the seasons of American Horror Story, and I mean, I love the idea. And this season, it's like every episode, there's like all of a sudden so much sex in it, and I'm just like, why? Why does this have to be a thing? You're ruining it. Like, I don't think this is what it's supposed to be. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm such a grandpa. Do you guys feel like any of these films will find their way on a traditional watch list for every year? Do you guys have the traditional movies that you watch every year at certain times?
We do, yes. And The Shining is definitely one of those. The Exorcist, Crow. We always watch those around this time of year. We had a big debate, actually, whether to put Nightmare Before Christmas at Christmas time or at Halloween time.
Oh, yeah, right.
So it has to be watched, but we're going to save it for Christmas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, Nightmare Before Christmas is actually a Christmas movie. I've never watched it as a Halloween movie. But yeah, definitely the others. I mean, Halloween I would always watch, and definitely The Shining, Psycho. But in looking at if we can pull this off again next year, we've actually decided that we might try to leave out movies that we watched this year and challenge ourselves a little bit more and come away from are old familiars.
So, like a brand new list of 31 new movies?
Yeah.
Which we've already formulated, actually. And we got different movies.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a step away from the movies for a second, because you ended up, I think, probably you weren't planning on it originally, I don't think, but the music. Where did the music come from? How did you find the music, I guess? How did that list happen?
John found it. He's the music one of the couple here.
Yeah, I guess Lana's the movie buff, and I'm much more of a music buff.
Well, then you needed a little bit, some of that, to balance it out.
Oh, well, and honestly, I don't even know at what point the music came into it, but I just remember turning to Lana and saying, okay, well, if we're doing 31 movies, we need to do 31 songs, because, I don't know, there are always songs that I listen to that I kind of think would fit a Halloween role or that kind of idea. And so I think much of the movie list ended up being Lana's role in terms of coming up with the movies. And so the music list ended up becoming my role. Although Lana did throw in, I'd say, at least a third of the songs that were on that list. But a lot of them are just songs that I love, or songs that make me think of certain movies, or even songs from some of the movies that we watched as well.
So can you give us a few of those? Because I don't think we've seen a list of the music, right? Like, what were some of the examples of like when I think of music for that time of year, for me it's Monster Mash and some of those type. What were some of them that you listened to?
So Monster Mash was actually on there, and we also included the Banana Boat song, because, you know, we did watch Beetlejuice.
Oh, okay, I didn't think about that, yeah.
And because we watched Lost Boys, we included Cry Little Sister. So we did have some of those on there, and then we had other ones too, like, you know, we included, because we did watch Nightmare on Elm Street, we did include the Freddy Krueger song.
Fresh Prince?
We did that one as well, because we thought, like, I couldn't have us watching Nightmare on Elm Street and not include the actual 1-2 Freddy's Coming for You.
Okay, that's what you meant. Gotcha.
And then we also went with the Fresh Prince and DJ Jazzy Jeff, because it's the Fresh Prince and DJ Jazzy Jeff. So yeah, we totally went that route as well. And then there were other songs on there that, you know, really had nothing to do specifically with any of the movies, or necessarily, I guess, say Halloween, and maybe even bands that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily know, but in my mind, they fit really well with what we were trying to accomplish. So we had, like, Bloodletting by Concrete Blonde, Bela Lugosi's Dead by Bauhaus, because that's one of my favorite songs ever. We had to include The Cure, and Lullaby is one of my favorite songs by The Cure, and I thought it very fitting for, you know, scary nightmare Halloween time.
And we felt it was kind of important to promote one of our little local bands, which is Johnny Hollow. They're not far from us, and they play some very dark and interesting music.
Yeah, they're from Guelph, Ontario, and they have some really cool music that we love a lot. And so a couple of their songs made the list as well, because they fit so well. We had everybody on there. We had the Ramones and Rob Zombie and Joy Division and Color Theory. We had a lot of people on there.
So have you considered doing any reviews, like formal reviews of any of the movies that you covered? Like either in blog form or something like that?
Not officially. I think for me, it was so overwhelming just watching them that the idea of then having to sit down and looking at each one individually was a little bit more than I could handle. I know Lana had thought about it and did actually make a little bit of a note, you know, about, well, at least looking at the taglines of each movie. And had thought about, actually, we talked about maybe writing up reviews, but it became a little bit more daunting than I was ready for.
We were lucky to get in the time to actually watch the movies, as opposed to writing about them also. Maybe with the 12 Days of Christmas.
Maybe.
There you go. So this actually just popped in my brain. I'm usually pretty formal with questions that I have ready, but I just started thinking, I'm looking at your list. What if we played a game where I just give you the name of a movie and that you watched from your list? Now, I don't have the bonuses, but I've got the regular ones. And maybe you could each give me a word that first pops in your head from that movie. What do you think?
go for it.
Give it a shot.
If this ends up being a bomb, we'll cut it out of the podcast. is what we'll do. That's what happens when you're the boss and you get to do whatever you want.
That's great.
Okay, so, gosh, this is just incredibly random. Okay, As Above, So Below.
Scariest movie ever.
Totally gets under my skin.
See, I haven't seen that. There's a lot of these I haven't seen.
That is one that you should definitely watch.
Oh my God, Patrick. It sticks with me for days. And even just talking about it now, it actually starts getting under me again. It's one of the weirdest movies that I honestly, when we first watched it, I thought it was going to be really cheesy. Mm-hmm. I really didn't think it was going to be good. And after we watched it, I thought, I don't know if I can sleep.
Who's in that one? That was recent. That was 2014.
Is it anybody?
I don't think there actually is a big name actor. The main star of the show is the Paris Catacombs.
Oh, okay. Now I know which one you're talking about. Yeah, I remember seeing the previews for that.
I am slightly claustrophobic, and that movie, I would not go in there.
See, and I'm not claustrophobic at all, but for me it was the idea of kind of being trapped in a scenario without really having an escape, and just the way they did it, I don't know, I thought it was really, really good.
So that movie was not a bomb in your eyes?
Yeah.
Got it. So another one that actually I've said for the longest time that I needed to see, Witchboard.
I love that movie. It's cheesy 80s classic. That's my answer for that one.
Yeah, I'd also say cheesy.
Is there's some big hair in that one?
There's big shoulders in that one.
It's bigger than Tawny Katane.
It's I probably wouldn't necessarily watch it again unless I'm really wanting that really cheesy bad horror flick. For me, it was almost like a TV movie kind of idea.
Okay, Jeepers Creepers.
Ugh. That creeped me out a lot.
It's a Justin Long classic. He was still funny enough that you could see where his career was going. The monster wasn't so scary in my eyes, but it was okay.
Yeah, I didn't find it scary, but it was creepy. Just in the way that they had the, I guess, monster, that, villain portrayed, and the truck in Jeepers Creepers kind of creeped me out, because it was just the idea of, okay, I'm done. I don't really want to be on a lonely highway again for a while.
I must say, though, that to have a horror movie, the stars have to make a bad decision or two. These were the worst decisions, though. If you're driving by and you see a guy dumping a body down a hole, I would go and call the cops. But no, they have to stop and go back and see what's down the hole. So,
not just look down the hole, but actually
fall
go
into
down
the
hole.
It's kind of like that commercial I forget what the commercial's for, the TV commercial that's out, at least here in the States. But they basically are doing the whole play on a cheesy horror flick where the actors take every wrong step and do every move that they shouldn't. And so, they on purpose go down to the scary basement, and something happens, and they're like, "Oh, go run to that, barn with all the chainsaws." And
That's awesome.
It is hilarious, and I don't even. I'm gonna have to look for that and send it to you. But that's what it reminded me of when you said that.
Very cool.
So, how about Carrie?
Classic, absolutely classic. I love Carrie. It's one of my favorite movies. Sissy Spacek pretty much says it all.
That's pretty much it for me too. Yeah, it's just a classic movie that you have to see.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the original, never the remake.
Right. Carrie is one of those. I actually didn't see it until I think it was probably 10 years ago. And once I saw it, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'd never seen this." And I've watched it once a year ever since.
Oh yeah, you have
Same
to.
Here. Yeah.
Let's see. How about The Changeling?
Absolutely fantastic. That is your Victorian style gothic horror with the suggestion instead of the gore. It's a great movie.
I love The Changeling, and I had been talking about it for a long time, and I don't think Lana had seen it
I
yet.
had not seen it.
So that was one of the ones that I actually got to introduce to Lana, because there aren't many that I get to introduce. But that one is absolutely one of my favorites, so I was really happy that we got to watch that one.
I saw that actually for the first time like 3 years ago, and I was very surprised to see the EVP element in that one.
Yes.
Which would have been very early on, kind of in the history of EVP. It would have been a very new thing. So that was kind of cool. That would have been like cutting edge.
Yeah, I guess, because the movie was released in 1980.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really sure. I think you guys are more the EVP experts than I am. I don't really know when that really started.
I think 60s and 70s is really kind of when it was. I don't think it was very common to the rest of the world, but in the 60s and 70s, I think is when a lot of EVP started.
Yeah, it was cool actually watching, and just the way that they did it in The Changeling too, right? It wasn't an intended piece necessarily. It was really cool.
Yeah. Cool house.
Very, yes.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to live there.
Okay, let's go to one that I haven't ever seen. What about Ginger Snaps?
You have to watch it, Patrick.
Really?
It's Canadian, so that just automatically, for me, makes it a love, and it has some of my favorite Canadian actors in it. I like it because it is a different take on werewolves. And so I mean, it's, you know, it's got kind of that cheesy horror element to it too, but, you know, the effects maybe aren't spectacular. But I think it's an awesome movie. Let's
do one more. And that is a movie that I feel like I have a lot of connection with just because I've covered it a lot. What were your thoughts on The Conjuring?
I personally love The Conjuring. I know that there's some differing opinions on what actually happened and what role people played, but I personally really enjoyed it. I like to see the Warrens in action.
This was one that I hadn't seen until Lana introduced me. I don't know that I would have necessarily had the guts to watch it on my own, because I'm turning into a big chicken as I get older. But I had seen it before, and then we watched it again as part of this list, and it was after your podcast that was dealing with the Warrens, and so I got to watch it this time with a totally new perspective, which made it a lot more interesting for me, and I saw it completely differently.
That's cool. And you know what? Whether things were true or what the history of the real story was or not, it was a really cool movie. Mm-hmm. A really cool movie.
Very cool.
One thing that I think I totally see like a how-to post or a blog where you could give suggestions on how to kind of, do this themed 31 movies for families or people interested. And I don't know whether you'd suggest movies or just kind of give tips or pointers on how someone else could go about this journey for themselves. What are some of the suggestions or pointers that you would have for people?
I may not start directly with the whole 31. First of all, it is a lot. And then just depending on the age groups of your families, you have to be very careful which movies you select. We tried to mix it up because we have no idea who's reading our blog. So we know that, especially Denise from History Goes Bump podcast, she is not into the truly gory or even necessarily scary at all Halloween movies. So we tried to throw in a few Disney ones there for her and everybody else that was reading. So. But yeah, you just have to be very careful on your age groups if you're doing it for a family.
You know, one of the things for me that I found and it really changed the experience for me was, instead of looking at it as, oh my God, we've got to fit in a movie again, or we still have this many to go, I started approaching it as, this is time that I get to spend with my partner. And so it really became more quality time, and it became an experience instead of a chore. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest tips that I would provide, is just look at it as an experience, and it's quality time, and you get to actually have that shared experience of a movie that you maybe have seen before, or maybe you're just giving it a shot. And whether you like it or not, it's the experience about the whole thing.
That's beautiful. It's kind of like, I guess, taking everyone's devices away from them and having game night.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's what I think of. That's cool. A cool way to think about it. So I want to give you guys the opportunity to, just in general, if people haven't read your blog or found your blog, they've definitely heard, of Carbon Lilies if they're a regular listener of my podcast. But just kind of tell us what Carbon Lilies is about, and tell us if there's anything exciting coming up, and where to find the blog.
So we'll start by where to find it. You can go to www.carbonlilies.tumblr.com. So we are on Tumblr, and that's Lilies, Liles. We started, I guess we were born of the idea that we love to have experiences. We love to go on road trips and check out museums and galleries, and we have this shared love of all things paranormal. And somewhere along the line, we just started saying, it'd be really cool to write about our experiences, and if somebody wants to read them, that would be even cooler. So we kind of played around with the idea of starting a blog, but neither of us had really known much about blogging. We didn't really have too much experience reading them. I mean, there were a few that I had read, and I had been told by a few people in my life that I should try writing a blog, because I had, had a few trips that I had shared the experiences of, and they said, that it would be something they would enjoy reading. So that had come back to me when we started talking about how much we love to go on road trips and check out different places, and then we started sharing our sort of ghosty experiences as well. And so it just kind of came from all of that, and we decided, well, let's just write about it, and we'll write about everything. We'll write about the places we go, but it's not just the destination that we write about, it's the whole process of getting there and what happens along the way, because sometimes that's the coolest part of the experience, is what happens when you're going from point A to point B. It's not necessarily when you get to point B and what happens when you're there. It's what happens along the way.
Like when we're in search of an elusive eclair.
Yeah, we just, even silly little adventures like that. We had one night we were out, and I can't even remember now. I'd have to read the blog post again, but I can't even remember what sparked the idea, but we just suddenly decided we wanted these chocolate eclairs, and so we went from coffee shop to coffee shop to coffee shop until we finally found one. We just wrote about the experience because it ended up being the craziest night. And so just things like that, it's not necessarily specific in what we're going to write about, but our goal is that we share the experience, and it really does, for the most part, end up becoming a conversation when we write the joint articles, which I think is one of the things that works really well for us, because it's that banter between us that I guess people can relate to it. It's like listening to a conversation and being able to share in part of that journey.
I think it's very cool that you guys experience it together and work on it together. I'm the only one here that has the paranerdal passions, and so sometimes it's a very selfish journey that I get to work so hard on it on my own. But that has to be really an experience and really cool to work on all of these things together.
It really is, and honestly, I think it's done so much for us as a couple too, because it gives us an opportunity to go and experience things that, we may say, well, I don't know if we should really do that, or can we afford to, or do we really have the time? But then we look at each other and say, well, we could write about it for the blog.
And next thing you know, we're on the road.
So it's cool because it's given us, just as people and as a couple, it's given us so many more opportunities and experiences than we necessarily would have grabbed hold of previously. So it's been a really, really cool and life-changing experience for us.
Well, I want to tell everybody that definitely they're going to find Carbon Lilies linked in the show notes at bigseance.com. And I also want to say that you guys are such an example of what can come out of a blogging type experience or a podcast experience, because you guys have been as I've said before, the greatest supporters and followers that have become, friends as well, and now guests on my podcast. And it's just, this is such a cool world where we can interact with other para-nerds. And I want to thank you for all of the support, and thank you for being paranerdal friends.
Oh, thank you so much, Patrick. You've really given us so much and have inspired us a lot too. And I think, looking at where you've started, with your blog and moving into the podcast, it actually got us thinking about, ways that we could even develop our blog and where we want it to go. And so we have some ideas for the future. And one of those is that we're actually going to switch our sites. So you guys can all stay tuned for a new website coming in 2016. We don't have an exact date yet, but we are working on it. So we'll be hopefully making it a little bit bigger and better for the new year.
Wow, very exciting. I didn't know that. Cool. I look forward to that. Well, you guys rock, and I thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Well, thank you very much for having us. We've loved being here, and we've loved the fact that we also had one other little bit where we get to give you an interview, and you're going to be on our blog.
Oh, yeah, and that was fun. A little behind the scenes. We just did that before this interview, so it's definitely something once you guys get that produced, it's definitely something that I will talk about again, and I'll direct people that direction so that they can, get some more big seance nerdiness if they don't get enough already from the podcast.
You never get enough, Patrick. Thank you so much. You really, really do rock.
You're listening to the Big Seance podcast with Patrick Keller. Look for us on iTunes and be sure to check out bigseance.com for more discussion.
I want to read you a few new reviews that have come in from the U.S. iTunes store. From Dina DC or Dana DC, a credible and entertaining podcast on the paranormal. I discovered this podcast a couple months back, just in time for Halloween. The host, Patrick Keller, chooses great topics. I enjoy his interview style. He asks great questions and lets the guest give in-depth answers. I also appreciate Patrick's sense of humor. He likes to have fun with these topics while also taking the paranormal seriously. I have particularly enjoyed the shows featuring two mediums from the UK and the interviews with Keith Johnson about the Conjuring house. I look forward to more great episodes. Thank you, Dina, or Dana. I'm sorry if I'm messing that up. I guess I'm messing up one of them for sure. Tack1313, who I believe has given me a review before, so thanks for returning, just keeps getting better. If you love spooky stories, old world anecdotes, and want something to send a few chills down your spine while sipping tea in the parlor, this podcast is just the thing. Patrick Keller is a marvelous host, and the podcast keeps getting better. Light some candles, get cozy, and give this podcast a listen. Well, thank you very much, you two. I really, really appreciate it. iTunes reviews are very helpful for podcasters. So once again, thank you. And one final shout out for this episode. Recently, I received an incredibly kind email from a listener by the name of Jeremy. He had some very nice things to say, but he also offered to help me in any way he could. I produced this show, at least so far, in a very control freak kind of way, and it's been all me and my guests. But you never know, maybe there will be some producer role in the future. But even if I don't bug you for help, Jeremy, know that it meant a lot, and I appreciate it. Well, that's the show for this week. This is coming out right after Thanksgiving for those of us here in the U.S., so I hope you have safe travels and enjoy the holiday. If you made it to this point, you may be waiting for the Paranerd hashtag. Let's go with Carbon Lilies. So hashtag Carbon Lilies, which is actually the name of Lana and John's blog. So that's hashtag CarbonLilies. Till next time. For show notes, including links to anything we may have mentioned in this episode, visit bigseance.com, now the home of both the blog and the podcast. Just click on the Big Seance Podcast logo or find it in the menu. You can also find and subscribe to the show on iTunes and Stitcher. Do you have any comments or feedback? Please contact me at patrick@bigseance.com. You can call my feedback line at 7755-TELL-ME. That's 775-583-5563. You can also record audio feedback right from the site using the SpeakPipe link included in the show notes. I could decide to include your voice in a future show. Thank you so much for listening and reading. Unfortunately, it's time to blow the candles out, but we'll see you and light them again next time. Wow, very exciting. I didn't know that. Cool. I look forward to that. I don't know.
I was looking at Lana thinking, are you about to say something? Look at me.
It's hard enough with two people. Sometimes with three, it adds another little awkward lull in there.
Yeah.